This forecast is brought to you by me. For information on readings I offer, check out my website at manic.mercurian.net, or you can also email me at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. And by the way, you can also purchase readings directly through my website as well. Thank you. Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, July 1st through Sunday, July 7th, 2024. This week we start a new month, and this week we'll have the moon transiting from Taurus all the way through Leo. Really, this week, as far as I can see it, everything is kind of about Cancer, and sort of by extension, it's about the moon, okay? So those of you that have a lot of strong Cancer placements, if you have Cancer Sun, Cancer Moon, really this time is all about you. You will be feeling especially in your element this week. Those of you that, are very emotional or very intuitive, very psychic, those of you that have very deep feelings, this is kind of your time to shine. This is even more true because of where the moon is going to be transiting through and what the moon will be doing this week. So we'll start the week with moon in Taurus. It will go all the way through Gemini, Cancer, and Leo. And I've said in past forecasts that the moon really thrives in this entire general part of the zodiac. We start out the week with the moon exalted in Taurus. Moon will then be in joy in Gemini, in domicile in Cancer, and then even in Leo, moon tends to do pretty well there as well. So again, this is a really great time for, kind of steeping into our own emotion and coming back to the basics. How do we feel about our environments? How do we feel about our circumstances, etc.? This is also especially true because we will have a new moon in Cancer this week as well, and that's what will happen when the moon catches up to the sun in Cancer. So not only is the sun ruled by Cancer, but the moon will also reach Cancer and conjoin the sun, starting off a new lunar cycle. So lots of moon topics, lots of Cancer topics. I did want to mention as well, for those of you that have strong Cancer placements, like Cancer Sun, Moon, Rising, etc., the combination of Sun and Venus in Cancer is really kind of bolstering you and kind of propping you up, supporting you, so to speak. We do start the week with Mercury in Cancer as well, but that will very quickly change, as we will see. So going to Tuesday, July 2nd, this is where a few different interesting things kind of happen. Mercury will leave Cancer and enter Leo on this day. And I know that's super crazy. Mercury only spent a couple weeks in Cancer. Mercury is flying right now. It's traveling very quickly. Before Mercury enters Leo, though, just before, on this same day, when Mercury reaches 29 degrees Cancer, Mercury will trine Neptune. So remember, Neptune's at 29 degrees Pisces. So pretty much, generally speaking, anytime any planet enters any sign, right before it does so, it makes an aspect to Neptune. So that's kind of a very interesting phenomenon that we've been experiencing for a while. So the same is true today with Mercury. So as Mercury goes through the very last part of Cancer, again, it's still in this very emotional place very early in the day on Tuesday, and this applies to Monday the 1st as well. But when Mercury's traveling through those last couple degrees of Cancer, it makes this very harmonious trine to Neptune, and it channels in this very spiritual kind of otherworldly presence or energy, okay? So those of you that have those strong Cancer placements, even if you have placements at the beginning of Leo, or if you have strong Mercury placements as well, you may be very intuitive. You may get downloads of information. You may experience some kind of psychic phenomenon. What else? You may just experience like a clarity, where you feel very strongly. You know how you feel. I think that's what's so refreshing about Cancer in general, but this becomes even more profound with this aspect to Neptune and Pisces. Profound clarity, wisdom, insight, etc. And again, it may be of a very emotional or kind of mystic sort of nature. So basically that's what happens kind of briefly, if I'm being honest, late Monday, early Tuesday. And then again, by noon on Tuesday, you can see that Mercury has already moved on and entered Leo. So that means we're moving into a new phase as far as Mercury is concerned. And remember, Mercury has to do with the mind, the intellect, it's the information, it's our short distance travel, if that makes sense. Mercury kind of has to do with the connections of everything. So much of that is mental, but it's also kind of our busyness. It's like the rhythm of everything. So with Mercury leaving Cancer and entering Leo, That indicates that rather than filtering all the information through the heart or through, the feeling, the gut, so to speak, we're taking on a more outward approach, a more outgoing approach. With Mercury and Leo, we don't really want to sit back and question everything. With Mercury and Leo, it's a very confident placement. Pretty much any planet transiting Leo kind of bolsters the confidence, I would say. So with Mercury and Leo, it's no exception. We are a little bit more, I don't know. I think after going through Mercury and Cancer, we've really mulled things over and we've come back to a very, a place where we know how we feel. And that's what turns into this confidence and outgoing nature that we experience, as in this case, Mercury is transiting Leo, if that makes sense. So Mercury in Leo is not necessarily the most intellectual placement. It can be, though. Leo is a very open sign. It's just open to everything. It wants to connect with everything, if that makes sense. So that's where you can actually get, this tendency to be open to a wide array of experiences and information with Mercury in Leo. So I think this complements the other energies very well. We still have Sun and Venus in Cancer, of course. So in terms of the energy, the daily rhythm, as far as the Sun is concerned, in terms of the pleasure and the desire, those things are still very emotional. Those things are still in Cancer. But Mercury, again, the information, that is in this very fiery, kind of a little bit more outgoing sign of Leo. So there may just be generally more activity when it comes to informational types of themes. I do notice also that at the same time Mercury is entering Leo, Moon leaves Taurus and enters Gemini. So that's another energy that's shifting toward a more outgoing sign. The combination of Mercury and Leo with Moon and Gemini is very fun, very open, very expansive. So it's kind of a blend that we're experiencing right now. We're still kind of in our feels and, we're still coming back home, coming back to the basics with Sun in Cancer, Venus in Cancer, but also branching out a little bit, having some fun. These are very youthful energies, Gemini and Leo in particular, Cancer as well to some extent. All of these are very, youthful energies. They want to have fun. They want to, these are the signs of late spring and early summer, basically. So that's what we are still experiencing with these inner planets all traveling around this general area. I did want to mention as well that, speaking of Neptune earlier, on this same day, Tuesday, July 2nd, Neptune actually stations retrograde and begins to move backward from our point of view. And I think that's driving a lot of us crazy, those of us that follow astrology to a large degree. I think many of us were, we wanted to be so excited seeing Neptune at the very last, not just the last degree of Pisces, but the last fraction of a degree, pretty much. It's at 55 minutes of the last degree of Pisces. So in other words, Neptune is so close to entering Aries, but it won't do so yet. It's still going to turn backward from our point of view, turn retrograde, get deeper back into Pisces. And this is so, I think for many of us, it's frustrating because Neptune is such a far outer planet. It takes so many years to go through a sign. So in other words, I've said before that we've been experiencing Neptune and Pisces for longer than I've even known about astrology. I've been studying astrology since about halfway through 2012, 12 years ago almost. And Neptune was in Pisces even then. So, since I've been aware of astrology, I've never experienced Neptune in any other sign. That's how long it takes. So in other words, we've been in this very dreamy, mystical, confusing end phase ever since before 2012, really. Someone can comment what the year Neptune entered Pisces was, because I don't know that off the top of my head. I believe it was maybe 2010 or 2011, somewhere around there. But anyway, so this is really kind of an era. It's spanning more than a decade, but it does continue. Neptune will remain in Pisces until about halfway through next year. And I keep foreshadowing that things are going to really hit the fan in a wild way about halfway through next year, because right now Neptune and Saturn are both in Pisces. So again, we're still in this very confusing, weird time. No one knows what's true. No one knows what's accurate. There's so much lies and deception, but also, movements of truth. And, we don't know up from down. It's very confusing. That's Pisces. That's Neptune and Saturn and Pisces. This will continue until halfway through next year. And something radically changes in May, June of 2025. Because Neptune and Saturn, within just a few days of one another, both will enter Aries. So roughly at the same time, we're going to move from this very Piscean, dreamy, confusing time to suddenly things are crystal clear and we're moving forward. Okay, so I know this is just a week forecast. I'm kind of on a tangent, but we're so close to getting into this very exciting era of Aries, but we're not quite there yet. That won't happen for really the better part of a year. Okay, let's move forward to July 5th, Friday, July 5th. This is probably the biggest day of the week, if I'm being totally honest, because by now on Friday, the moon has gone through Gemini, it's left Gemini, entered Cancer, and late on Friday, Eastern Standard Time, the moon will conjoin the sun at 14 degrees Cancer, and most of you know what that means. Moon conjunct the sun is a fancy name for a new moon. That's what a new moon is. It's where the moon is very close to the sun from our point of view, if that makes sense. The moon passes the sun, I guess you could say. And like I said in the intro, with moon and the sun kind of coupled roughly halfway through Cancer, this is a very moon dominated phenomenon. Okay. Not just because it's a new moon, obviously we're talking about the moon in this case, but because this is happening in the moon's home sign of Cancer. So in other words, this is happening at a place where the moon is very strong. So really it's all about the moon, it is about the sun as well to some extent, since moon is conjunct the sun. But in this case, the sun is in Cancer. Sun is in the moon's home, so to speak. Sun is in this area ruled over by the moon. So what does that mean for us? A supercharged moon, a new lunar phase. Something new is beginning from within us, okay? That would be true of any new moon, but especially this one. Something new is coming about, and it's going to be a little bit different for everyone, but it's coming from a place of emotion, feeling, intuition. What else? It could even be information as well, but again, it's information of like I guess maybe wisdom is a better term, like something with like feeling to it or heart. Lunar energies can be very perceptive though, so there can be a lot of learning at this time, a lot of picking up on different vibes or themes that we may have not noticed before, patterns, etc. It all kind of falls under intuition, if that makes sense. But this is a great time for setting new intentions, especially, well, I'll give it to you on a general level and then I'll say what it would mean specifically. So you can look specifically to where 14 degrees Cancer falls in your chart for more information on how this affects you personally. And depending on what area of your chart it's in, you can have, focus on your new intentions for that part of your life. Is this in your 7th house? Then re-examine your intentions with your relationships, with your partnerships, etc. You can apply that to any kind of area. Is it in your house of career? Is it your 1st house, 4th house, whatever? For us all on a general level, though, this is happening in Cancer, which is the sign not only of emotions, but also motherhood, childhood. It's like the mother-child relationship. So it's about mothers, but it's about children equally as much, I think. So this can be a new beginning in all of that. Motherhood, what else? Caretaking in general. And again, like I said, too, like new beginnings with feeling, a new feeling coming about, or a new perception in regard to your feelings, or how you manage your emotions. I think many of us are big on that. Many of us that are into astrology are looking for peace of mind. We're looking for true happiness. I think that's largely what spirituality is all about, like finding true emotional satisfaction and groundedness, if that makes sense. So this could be a big one when it comes to those types of things. How are you feeling? How can you improve your situation in that regard, etc. This is a time for that beginning. And I always want to specify too, with a new moon, it is a new beginning, but there are different types of new beginnings. This isn't a new beginning. Well, for most of us, this is not going to be the new beginning in the sense of like dramatically changing something, or I don't know. Most of us aren't going to be like starting a new relationship or starting a new job or moving across the country. Could some of us be doing that? Sure. But generally speaking, a new moon is much more subtle than that. It's much less physical in nature. This is the very, very beginning. So it's not necessarily the point where we take a dramatic action. The question is what led to that action. Maybe always. It comes from it comes from the ether, right? So before things can manifest physically, they come from the ether. They come from God or other dimensions or from heaven, whatever you believe in. I think these are all kind of different ways of looking at the same thing in a way. The universe, from our souls, whatever, from our dreams, there's something permeating from the ether. Okay, so that's where you see this new thought, a new feeling, a new idea. That's what tends to happen on a new moon, especially this very lunar dominated new moon, because that's kind of what the moon is about in general as well. I really hope that makes sense. I know this is kind of a weird one, I think, but it looks like a great day for just like kind of mellowing out, so to speak. Many of us may have partied on the 4th of July, for those of you that reside in America, I guess. So honestly, I think Friday looks, to me, for most of us, it looks like a better day to kind of just wind down and chill. And, this is it's an ending and a new beginning. So to me, it looks more of like a kind of restful period, if that makes sense. Okay, and then moon will continue on. It'll transit through Cancer, and then by the end of the scope of this week's forecast, we kind of close things out with the moon newly in Leo for Sunday, July 7th. And the moon will actually conjoin Mercury, looks like in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time. So it's really interesting. We start out the week with moon conjunct Mars and Taurus, so it's a little bit volatile going into the week on Monday. But by the time we close things out, I think things have become a little bit less energized. They may be a little bit more peaceful. But we do get this kind of uptick of energy with the moon entering the fiery sign of Leo, conjoining Mercury. So that suggests we may be a little bit restless, but we may also be learning a lot of new information on Sunday as well. So that's pretty much what I have for you for this week. I hope that was interesting or helpful. But otherwise, thank you for hanging out with me for these 17-ish minutes. Next week, we do have a couple of things happening. There's a first quarter moon in Libra, so that is exciting. That is more the time of like actually taking a physical action, if that makes sense, especially socially or with information. Next week, we also have Venus changing signs, joining Mercury in Leo, so I'll talk about that as well. Okay, thanks again so much for watching. Definitely check out my website if you haven't already, and I'll see you for the next forecast.